The helicopter blades cut through the cold morning air. Inside, Princess Anne sat silent. Her hands rested on her lap, fingers interlaced. She stared out the window at the gray clouds below. No one spoke. The flight attendant glanced at her once, then looked away. Something was wrong. Anne could feel it. The call had come at dawn. "Your presence is required immediately," the voice said. No explanation. No details. Just urgency. Anne had been preparing for a charity visit to a children's hospital that morning. She'd chosen her outfit the night before. A soft blue suit. Pearl earrings. Everything was ready. Then the call came, and everything changed. Now, 30 minutes into the flight, Anne's mind raced. She thought of her family. Her brother. Her father. Were they safe? The voice on the phone had been calm but firm. That calmness worried her more than panic would have. Calm meant control. Control meant something serious had already happened. The helicopter began its descent. Through the window and saw the palace grounds. Police vehicles lined the main entrance. Officers stood in tight groups. Some were talking into radios. Others just stood watching. The scene looked choreographed. Like everyone knew their role except her. Before you go further into this story, make sure you're subscribed. This channel brings you the most gripping real-life stories you won't find anywhere else. Hit that subscribe button now so you don't miss what happens next. The helicopter touched down. A royal guard opened the door before the blades even stopped spinning. His face was stone. "Your Royal Highness," he said, bowing slightly. "Please, this way." Anne stepped onto the grass. The wind from the rotors whipped her hair across her face. She pushed it aside and followed the guard. He walked quickly. Too quickly. She had to almost jog to keep pace. They passed through a side entrance she rarely used. The hallway was empty. Their footsteps echoed against marble floors. What happened? Anne finally asked. Her voice was steady, but her heart pounded. The guard didn't turn. "Captain Morris will brief you, ma'am. He's waiting in the West Wing." The West Wing. That was strange. The West Wing was used for security meetings, for classified briefings, not for family gatherings. Not for good news. They turned a corner. 2 more guards stood outside a wooden door. They straightened when they saw Anne. One of them knocked twice, then pushed the door open. Inside, Captain Morris stood beside a table covered in papers and photographs. He looked up. His expression was grim. "Your Royal Highness," he said. "Thank you for coming so quickly," and stepped inside. The door closed behind her with a heavy thud. She looked at the captain, then at the papers on the table. Some were face down. Others showed images she couldn't quite make out from where she stood. "Captain," she said, her voice firmer now. "Tell me what happened." Maurice took a breath. He glanced at the papers, then back at Anne. "Ma'am, there's been an incident. Approximately 4 hours ago. We need you to understand the situation before we proceed." Anne's stomach tightened. "Who?" she asked. The word came out quieter than she intended. Morris picked up a photograph. He held it for a moment, as if weighing whether to show her. Then he turned it around. Anne's expression changed instantly. Asterisk. The photograph showed a car. Twisted metal, shattered glass. The front end crumpled against a stone barrier. Anne's breath caught. She recognized the vehicle. It was one of the royal fleet, the silver sedan used for private transport. When Anne's voice was barely above a whisper. 3:47 this morning, Morris said. On the North Road, approximately 6 miles from the estate. Anne's mind flashed to the people she knew who used that route. Her cousin James traveled it often when visiting from his country home. Her Aunt Margaret's driver took that road every weekend. Even her own security detail used it during shift changes. "Who was inside?" Anne asked. She forced herself to look at Maurice instead of the photograph. The captain set down the picture and picked up a file. The vehicle was registered to Lord Pemberton's household. His driver, Thomas Whitley, age 41, and a passenger, and waited. Morris seemed reluctant to continue. "Ma'am, the passenger was Emma Whitley, Thomas's daughter. She was 17. The room felt smaller suddenly. Anne had met Emma once at a garden party 2 summers ago, a bright girl with blonde hair and a quick smile. She'd asked Anne about her charity work, about what it was like to travel the world helping people. Anne had told her to stay curious, to stay kind. Emma had nodded, her eyes full of hope. Are they? Anne couldn't finish the sentence. Thomas didn't survive the impact, Maurice said quietly. Emma was airlifted to London General. She's in critical condition. Anne closed her eyes. She thought of Emma's mother, of the family that would wake up today to unimaginable loss. When she opened her eyes again, she focused on Morris. What caused it? Maurice exchanged a glance with another officer in the corner of the room. Anne hadn't noticed him before. He was younger, maybe 30, with sharp eyes and a notebook in his hand. That's why you're here, ma'am, Morris said. We have reason to believe this wasn't an accident. The words hung in the air. Anne felt her pulse quicken. What do you mean? Morris walked to the table and spread out 3 more photographs. The first showed tire marks on the road, dark, thick lines that curved sharply before disappearing at the barrier. The second showed the car's brake system. Something about it looked wrong, even to Anne's untrained eye. The third showed a small device, black, rectangular, wires exposed. We found this attached to the undercarriage, Morris said, pointing to the device. It's a remote access module. Someone could control the vehicle's systems from a distance. Accelerator, brakes, steering, and stared at the image. Her mind struggled to process what she was hearing. Someone did this deliberately. That's our current assessment, Morris said. We're treating this as a targeted attack. Targeted. Anne's voice rose slightly. On a driver and his daughter? The younger officer stepped forward. Ma'am, we don't believe they were the intended targets. Nay turned to him. Then who? He hesitated, looking to Maurice for permission. The captain nodded. That vehicle was scheduled to transport you this morning. Your visit to the children's hospital, the route was pre-approved. The car was assigned specifically for your detail.
The room tilted.
Anne gripped the edge of the table. What? Your schedule was changed at the last minute, Maurice explained. A request came through late last night to use a different vehicle. Armored transport. The change was logged at 11:32. Thomas wasn't informed until early this morning. He took the original car for a routine check. Emma had asked to ride along. She wanted to see the sunrise from the North Hills. Anne's hands trembled. She pressed them flat against the table. Thomas had died because someone wanted to kill her. Emma was fighting for her life because of her. Who changed my schedule? Anne asked. Her voice was cold now, controlled. Morris pulled out another document. That's what we're investigating. The request came through official channels. It was authenticated with proper credentials. But when we traced it back this morning, the authorization code doesn't match any current protocol. Someone inside, Anne said. It wasn't a question. We're not ruling anything out, Maurice said carefully. But yes, ma'am. Someone with access. Anne straightened. She looked at both men. Who else knows about this? Your brother has been informed. Your father is being briefed as we speak. Beyond the immediate family and essential security personnel, this is contained. Anne nodded slowly. What do you need from me? Morris pulled out a chair. Ma'am, we need to go through your schedule. Every person who knew your movements, every location you were meant to visit. We need to find whoever did this before they try again. Anne sat down. Through the window, she could see the morning sun breaking through clouds. Somewhere in a hospital, Emma Whitley was fighting to live. And somewhere else, someone was planning their next move. Asterisk, the next 3 hours blurred together. Anne sat at the table reviewing documents. Security logs, staff schedules, communication records. Morris brought her coffee twice. She barely touched it. Names and faces cycled through her mind. People she trusted. People she'd known for years. The younger officer, who introduced himself as Lieutenant Ashford, had a methodical way of asking questions. He never rushed, never pressed too hard. But Anne could see the wheels turning behind his eyes. Every answer she gave led to another question. Every detail mattered. Your schedule for yesterday, Ashford said, flipping through his notebook. Who had access to it? Anne thought back. My private secretary, Catherine. My head of security, Commander Wells. The palace coordinator. My driver would have received it the night before. Anyone outside the immediate staff? The hospital administration. They needed to coordinate the visit. Possibly the local police for the route. Asterisk Ashford made notes. And the change to use armored transport. Did that surprise you? Anne shook her head. Not particularly. We've increased security measures over the past few months. Threats are assessed regularly. Using armored vehicles isn't unusual, but you didn't request it. No. I assumed it came from Commander Wells. Maurice, who had been listening quietly, leaned forward. We spoke with Wells 30 minutes ago. He didn't authorize the change either. Anne's jaw tightened. Then who did? The request came through the Central Security Office, Maurice said. It was logged by Officer Daniel Hartley, night shift supervisor. He confirmed receiving the authorization, but he can't identify who delivered it. The system shows it came through encrypted channels used for high-priority commands. Where is Hartley now? Anne asked. Being questioned, Ashford said. But ma'am, he's been with the Royal Security Detail for 12 years. Exemplary record. 2 commendations. I don't believe he's involved. Someone used his access, Anne said. That's what we're investigating. A knock on the door interrupted them. A guard entered, spoke quietly to Maurice, then left. The captain's expression darkened. What is it? Anne asked. Morris stood. Emma Whitley. She's awake. Anne was on her feet immediately. I need to see her. Ma'am, with respect, that's not advisable. The hospital is secure, but I need to see her, Anne repeated. Her tone left no room for argument. Morris and Ashford exchanged looks. Finally, Morris nodded. We'll arrange transport. Full security detail. No public announcement. 20 minutes later, Anne was in an armored vehicle speeding toward London General Hospital. 2 cars flanked them. Motorcycles led the convoy. The streets blurred past. Anne stared out the tinted window, her mind on the girl, fighting for her life because of her. The hospital had been cleared of press. Security personnel lined the corridors. Anne was led through a staff entrance and up a service elevator. The smell of antiseptic filled the air. Machines beeped from behind closed doors. A doctor met them on the 4th floor. Your Royal Highness, she said with a quick bow. I'm Dr. Sarah Chen. I've been overseeing Emma's care. How is she? Anne asked. Stable, but critical. She has internal injuries. Broken ribs. A punctured lung. Head trauma. She's been in and out of consciousness. Can she speak? Dr. Chen hesitated. Briefly. But ma'am, she's very weak. And she's asking for her father. She doesn't know yet. Anne's chest tightened. I understand. Dr. Chen led them to a private room at the end of the hall. 2 guards stood outside. Inside, machines surrounded a single bed. Emma lay beneath white sheets, her face pale and bruised. Tubes ran from her arms. A ventilator hissed softly beside her and approached slowly. She pulled a chair close and sat down. Emma's eyes were closed, her breathing shallow. Anne reached out and gently touched the girl's hand. Emma's eyes fluttered open. They were unfocused at first, searching. Then they found Anne. Recognition flickered. Your Highness? Emma's voice was barely audible. I'm here, Anne said softly. You're safe now. Emma's eyes filled with tears. My dad. Where's my dad? Anne felt her throat constrict. She squeezed Emma's hand gently. He's being taken care of. Don't worry about anything right now except getting better. Emma's breathing quickened. The machines beeped faster. Something's wrong. I can tell, please. Where is he? Dr. Chen stepped forward, but Anne raised a hand, stopping her. She leaned closer to Emma, her voice steady despite the pain in her chest. Your father was very brave. He protected you. That's what he would want you to know. Emma's face crumpled. She understood. Anne stayed beside her, holding her hand as sobs racked the girl's broken body. Dr. Chen adjusted medication through an IV. Slowly, Emma's crying subsided. Her eyes grew heavy. "Did you see anything?" Anne asked quietly. "Before the crash? Did you notice anything unusual?" Emma's eyes tried to focus. The car. It started going faster. Dad tried to brake. He kept hitting the pedal. Nothing worked. He was pulling the wheel, but it wouldn't turn. He kept saying, "I can't stop it," over and over, and felt cold. "Did you see anyone following you? Any other cars?" Emma shook her head weakly. "Just us. Just the sunrise. Dad wanted to show me the view from the top of the ridge. We were going to turn around and come back." "You're very brave," Anne said. "Rest now." Emma's eyes closed. Within moments, she was asleep. Anne stood slowly, her legs stiff. She turned to find Maurice, watching from the doorway. "Someone knew that road," Anne said. "They knew the route, the timing. They waited for that car." Maurice nodded grimly. "And they're still out there." Back at the palace, Anne found her brother waiting in the private wing. Prince Edward stood by the window, hands clasped behind his back. He turned when she entered. His face was drawn, tired. "How is she?" he asked. "Alive," Anne said. "Barely." Edward nodded slowly. He walked to a cabinet and poured 2 glasses of water. He handed one to Anne. She took it, but didn't drink. "Father wants to move you to the northern estate," Edward said. "Full lockdown?" "Military security." "No." "Anne, no," she repeated firmly. "Hiding won't help. Someone inside our own security planned this. Running away just gives them time to plan again." Edward set down his glass. "Then what do you propose?" Anne walked to the desk and pulled out a map. "The hospital visit. It was announced 3 weeks ago. Public knowledge. Anyone could have known I'd be on that road. But the timing had to be precise. They needed to know exactly when that car would leave. When it would be on that specific stretch of road. The night shift authorization," Edward said. "Exactly. Someone with access to real-time security updates. Someone who could intercept communications and alter schedules without triggering alerts." Edward's expression darkened. "That's a very short list of people." "I know." A knock interrupted them. Commander Wells entered, his uniform crisp despite the early hour. He bowed to both royals. "Your Highnesses, we've completed the preliminary investigation into the security breach. And ass. Wells placed a folder on the desk. Officer Hartley's terminal was accessed remotely between midnight and 2 a.m. The IP address was masked, but our cyber team traced it to a location within the palace grounds. Anne's blood ran cold. "Where?" "The East Administrative Building. 3rd floor. Records office." Edward frowned. "That building houses dozens of staff members. Communications, archives, personnel files. We've begun interviewing everyone who had access last night," Wells said. "But there's something else." He pulled out a document. "We found this in the system logs. A search query run from that terminal at 1:43 a.m. Anne took the paper. Her hands shook slightly as she read. The search was for her complete itinerary. Every location, every route, every timestamp for the next 6 months. "They're not done," Anne said quietly. "This wasn't just about yesterday. They're planning something bigger." Wells nodded. "We believe so, ma'am. Which is why we need to lock down your movements immediately. No public appearances. No travel outside secure locations." Anne set down the paper. "No, if we do that, we lose any chance of finding them. They'll disappear. Wait. Try again later when we're less vigilant." "Ma'am, the risk is the same whether I hide or not," Anne interrupted. "But if I continue my schedule, if they think their plan is still viable, they'll have to make contact again. They'll have to access the system. And when they do, we'll be watching." Edward stepped closer. "You want to use yourself as bait. I want to end this," Anne said. "Before someone else gets hurt." Wells looked between them. "Your Highness, I must advise against this course of action. The threat level is unprecedented. We don't know how many people are involved. We don't know their ultimate goal. Exposing you to further danger is my choice, Anne said firmly. Commander, I appreciate your concern, but that girl in the hospital is 17 years old. Her father died thinking he failed to protect me. I won't let that sacrifice be meaningless. The room fell silent. Finally, Edward spoke. If we do this, we do it right. Full surveillance. Every terminal monitored. Every communication logged. At the first sign of trouble, you're extracted. Agreed? Anne met her brother's eyes. Agreed. Wells straightened. Then we'll need to set a trap. Something tempting enough to draw them out. And thought for a moment. Then an idea formed. The charity gala. Friday night. It was already on my schedule. High profile. Public. Hundreds of guests. Complex security logistics. They'd need to update their plans, Edward said, catching on. Access new route information. Venue layouts. Entry points. And we'll be monitoring every access request Wells finished. Anyone who searches for information about that event gets flagged immediately. No nodded. But we make it convincing. No changes to my routine. I act like nothing happened. Business as usual. That means going forward with tomorrow's engagements, Wells said. The school visit. The museum opening. All in public? Yes. Wells took a breath. Very well, ma'am. I'll coordinate with Lieutenant Ashford. We'll have plainclothes officers at every location. Cyber team monitoring all network traffic. But please, you must wear the protective vest under your clothing. Non-negotiable. And agreed. They spent the next hour planning every detail. Backup routes. Safe rooms. Emergency protocols. When Wells finally left, Anne sat down heavily. The adrenaline that had sustained her was fading. Exhaustion crept in. Edward sat beside her. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do. Why? Because of guilt. Anne looked at him. Because it's right. Because Emma deserves justice. Because whoever did this needs to know they can't win. Edward was quiet for a long moment. Mother would be proud of you. Anne felt tears prick her eyes, but she blinked them away. Let's hope I live long enough for her to tell me that herself. The next morning, Anne woke before dawn. She dressed carefully. A simple navy suit. Low heels. The protective vest was heavy beneath her blouse, but hidden well. She looked at herself in the mirror, composed, calm, ready. The school visit went smoothly. Children waved flags. Teachers beamed. Anne smiled and spoke and signed autographs. The whole time, her eyes scanned the crowd. Security personnel were invisible, but present. Nothing seemed out of place. The museum opening was more formal. Speeches, ribbon cutting, press photographs. Anne shook hands with dignitaries and donors. She laughed at appropriate moments. No one would guess her mind was elsewhere. But as the evening approached, Anne's phone buzzed. A text from Ashford. 3 words. We found something. And excused herself from the museum reception and was escorted to a private office. Ashford was already there with a laptop. His face was tense. What did you find? Anne asked, closing the door. Ashford turned the screen toward her. At 1400 hours today, someone accessed the security network. They ran searches on the charity gala. Venue blueprints. Guest list. Your arrival time? Anne's pulse quickened. Did you trace it? We did. But ma'am, you need to prepare yourself for this. He pulled up another window. A personnel file appeared. Anne leaned forward, reading the name at the top, Catherine Porter. Her private secretary, the woman who had worked beside her for 3 years, who knew her schedule better than anyone, who had access to everything. No, Anne whispered. Catherine wouldn't. The access came from her terminal, Ashford said. Same IP address. Same credentials. And ma'am, there's more. He clicked to another document. We pulled her financial records. 3 days ago, she received a wire transfer. £50,000. From an offshore account? Anne sat down. Her mind raced through every interaction she'd had with Catherine, every smile, every conversation. Had there been signs? Had she missed something? Where is she now? And asked, "We have her under surveillance. She's at her flat in Kensington. She left the palace at 6 p.m. as usual. Hasn't gone anywhere since." Anne stood. "I want to talk to her." "Ma'am, that's not protocol." "We should bring her in for formal questioning. She's worked with me for 3 years," and interrupted. "If she's involved, I need to understand why. And if she's not, if someone is using her credentials, we're wasting time." Ashford hesitated, then nodded. "I'll arrange transport. But we go with full security. And if anything feels wrong, we extract immediately." 30 minutes later, Anne stood outside Catherine's building. It was a modest brick structure in a quiet neighborhood. Lights glowed from a third-floor window. 2 plainclothes officers positioned themselves at exits. Ashford stayed close to Anne as they climbed the stairs. Anne knocked. Footsteps approached from inside. The door opened. Catherine stood there in casual clothes, surprise crossing her face. "Your Highness?" "What are you? May I come in?" Anne asked. Her voice was steady, but her heart hammered. Catherine stepped aside, confused. "Of course. Is everything all right?" And entered the small flat. It was tidy, organized. Bookshelves lined one wall. A desk sat by the window with a closed laptop. Everything looked normal. "To normal," Anne said, turning to face her. "I need to ask you some questions. And I need you to be completely honest with me." Catherine's confusion deepened. "Of course. What's this about? Where were you last night between midnight and 2 a.m.?" Catherine blinked. "I was here, sleeping." "Why? Can anyone verify that?" "I live alone." Catherine's voice took on an edge of worry. "Your Highness, what's going on?" Anne watched her carefully. Every micro-expression, every movement. She'd learned to read people over years of public service. Catherine looked genuinely confused, but fear was creeping into her eyes. "Someone accessed the security network using your credentials," Anne said. "They searched for information about my schedule." "About the charity gala?" Catherine's face went pale. "That's not possible. I didn't access anything last night. I was here." "Your terminal was used," Ashford said from behind Anne. "Your login. Your password." Catherine shook her head. "I don't understand. I never gave anyone my password. And my terminal is in the palace. It's secure. Do you have your laptop here?" Anne asked, nodding toward the desk. "Yes, but I only use it for personal things. I never access palace systems from home. It's against protocol." "May I see it?" Anne asked. Catherine walked to the desk and opened the laptop. She turned it on and stepped back. Ashford moved forward, his eyes scanning the screen as it loaded. He pulled out a USB drive and plugged it in. His fingers flew across the keyboard. Running a diagnostic, he muttered. Checking for remote access software, keyloggers, anything that could, he stopped. His eyes widened. "Ma'am, you need to see this." Anne moved closer. On the screen was a program she didn't recognize. Lines of code scrolled past. Ashford pointed to a timestamp. "This was installed 6 days ago," he said. "It's a monitoring program. Everything she types gets recorded and sent to an external server. Passwords, messages, everything." Catherine's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh my God, someone's been watching me." "Not just watching," Ashford said grimly. "They've been harvesting your credentials, using them to access systems while making it look like it was you." Anne turned to Catherine. The woman looked terrified. "Do you remember anything unusual? Anyone who might have accessed your computer?" Catherine's mind raced. The palace IT department. Someone came by last week. Said they needed to update security software. I left them alone with my laptop for maybe 10 minutes. "Who was it?" And asked. "I don't know. I'd never seen them before, but they had an IT badge. A work order." It all seemed legitimate. Ashford was already on his phone, speaking rapidly to someone. He hung up and looked at Anne. "Palacet confirms no update was scheduled for Catherine's laptop. No work order exists." Anne felt the pieces clicking together. Someone impersonated it, installed the monitoring software, then waited for the right moment to use her credentials. But who? Catherine asked. And why? Before anyone could answer, Ashford's phone buzzed. He answered, listened, and his face went rigid. He looked at Anne. We need to leave now. What happened? Commander Wells just called. Someone accessed the security system again. This time from a terminal in the Palace Communications Center. They're downloading the complete layout of the charity gala venue. All security positions. Every camera location. Anne's stomach dropped. They're planning to strike at the gala. Ma'am, we need to cancel the event. Evacuate the palace. Lock everything down. Anne shook her head. No, this is our chance. They're getting bold, making moves. If we shut everything down now, they'll disappear, Your Highness. How long until the gala? Ashford checked his watch. 43 hours. Anne looked at Catherine, then at Ashford. Then, we have 43 hours to find them. And we start by figuring out who that fake IT person was. Catherine stepped forward. I can help. I remember what he looked like. And there might be security footage from the hallway. I nodded. Get that footage. Pull every frame. I want to know who that person is before sunrise. As they left Catherine's flat, Anne felt the weight of what was coming. Someone had gone to extraordinary lengths to get to her. They'd planned. They'd waited. They'd sacrificed innocent people. But now they were moving, getting desperate. Making mistakes? And Anne was going to make sure those mistakes cost them. Everything. Asterisk, the Palace Security Center hummed with activity. Monitors covered every wall. Officers worked at stations, reviewing footage, tracking communications, monitoring every entrance. Anne stood in the center, Catherine beside her, watching as Ashford coordinated the investigation. Footage from the third floor, an officer called out, Last Tuesday, 1400 hours. A video appeared on the main screen. The hallway outside Catherine's office. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then a figure appeared. Male, mid-30s, dark hair. He wore an IT badge and carried a tablet. He knocked on Catherine's door. The camera angle didn't capture his face clearly, but his body language was confident, professional. That's him, Catherine said. That's the man who said he needed to update my system. Zoom in on the badge, Ashford ordered. The image enlarged. The badge looked authentic, but the text was slightly blurred. The name was unreadable. He knew where the cameras were and observed. Look at how he positions himself. Always at angles where his face is partially obscured. Asterisk, run it through facial recognition, Ashford said. Cross-reference with all palace staff, contractors, anyone with documented access in the past 6 months. The system began processing. Anne paced. Every second felt like an eternity. They were running out of time. The gala was tomorrow night. Hundreds of guests, diplomats, politicians, celebrities. If something happened there, the consequences would be catastrophic. Ma'am, Ashford said quietly. I need to ask. Are you certain about going through with the event? Anne turned to him. If we cancel, they'll know we're onto them. They'll vanish, regroup, attack when we least expect it. This way we control the situation. With respect, we don't control anything. They've been 3 steps ahead from the beginning, and it's time we caught up. Computer beeped. The officer at the terminal looked up. We have a match. 87% facial recognition probability? Everyone moved closer to the screen. A personnel file appeared. Anne read the name and felt ice spread through her veins. Marcus Thorne, former Royal Security Officer. Dismissed 18 months ago for breach of protocol. The official report cited improper handling of classified information. But Anne remembered the case differently. Thorne had been part of a team investigating corruption within palace administration. He'd found evidence of financial irregularities, payoffs, kickbacks. Before he could present his findings, he'd been discredited and dismissed. He tried to expose corruption, Anne said slowly, and he was silenced. Ashford pulled up Thorne's file. After his dismissal, he dropped off the grid. No employment records. No financial activity. Until 3 months ago, when a bank account in his name became active. Where is he now? Unknown. But we can trace his recent movements through security footage, Ashford typed rapidly. Multiple video feeds appeared. Thorne entering the palace through a service entrance. Thorne in the archives. Thorne in the communications center. He has help, Anne said. Someone is giving him access. Someone's still inside. Catherine leaned forward, studying the footage. Wait, go back. That image from the archives? Look at the timestamp. Ashford rewound. The footage showed Thorne leaving the archives at 2:37 a.m., but in the background, another figure was visible. Partially hidden. Watching. Enhance that, and ordered. The image sharpened. The second figure turned slightly. Anne's breath caught. She recognized the uniform. The posture. Commander Wells, she whispered. The room fell silent. Ashford's face went white. Ma'am, that's not possible. Commander Wells has served the royal family for 20 years, and 18 months ago, he led the investigation that destroyed Marcus Thorne's career. Anne's mind raced, connecting pieces. What if Thorne found something that implicated Wells? What if Wells orchestrated his dismissal to protect himself? Then why would Wells be meeting with him now? Catherine asked. Anne thought hard. Because Thorne has evidence. Evidence Wells thought was destroyed. But Thorne kept it, and now he's using it as leverage. Ashford grabbed his phone. I need to locate Wells immediately, Anne said. If we tip our hand now, they'll scatter. We need to catch them together. With proof. The gala, Ashford said, understanding dawning. They're both planning to be there. Anne nodded. Wells oversees all security. He'll have access to every detail. Every vulnerability. And Thorne will use that information to strike. But what's their endgame? Catherine asked. If Thorne just wanted revenge, he could have exposed Wells months ago. Outside, the palace grounds were bathed in moonlight. It's not about revenge. It's about money. Wells has been corrupt for years. Thorne discovered it. Wells destroyed him to keep it quiet. But Thorne didn't go away. He waited, planned, and now he's blackmailing Wells. Help me attack the princess, or I expose everything you've done. Wells would never agree to that, Ashford protested. He'd lose everything. He's already lost everything, Anne said. He just doesn't want it made public. So he cooperates, provides access, alters security, sets up the attack. And when it's over, they both disappear with whatever money they've been paid. Catherine's face was pale. But the crash. Thomas Whitley, Emma, they were innocent. Collateral damage, Anne said bitterly. They never cared who got hurt. Ashford was already coordinating with his team. We can arrest them now. We have enough evidence? No, Anne interrupted. Evidence of what? Meeting in a hallway? Accessing files they're authorized to access. A good lawyer would shred it. We need them caught in the act. We need them at the gala, making their move. Ma'am, that's too dangerous. Anne turned to face him. Then we make it safe. We know their plan. We know their access points. We let them think everything is proceeding normally, but we control every variable. We have our own people in every position. We watch. We wait. And when they make their move, we have them. The next 24 hours were a blur of preparation, and attended her scheduled engagements, smiling for cameras while behind the scenes. Ashford's team reconstructed the entire security apparatus for the gala. Trusted personnel only. Every position vetted. Backup plans for every scenario. Wells suspected nothing. He went about his duties normally, coordinating security, reviewing protocols. Anne watched him during briefings, seeing him with new eyes. How had she missed it? The subtle signs of corruption, the careful deflections, the way he'd always been, just a little too helpful. The evening of the gala arrived. Anne, dressed in a silver gown, elegant and simple. The protective vest was beneath it, Uncomfortable, but necessary. She looked at herself in the mirror one last time. In a few hours, this would all be over. One way or another. The ballroom was magnificent. Crystal chandeliers cast soft light over hundreds of guests. Music played. People laughed and danced. Anne moved through the crowd, gracious and composed. But her eyes never stopped scanning. Looking for Wells, for Thorne, for any sign that the trap was about to spring. At 9:45, her earpiece crackled. Ashford's voice was tense. Ma'am Wells is on the move, heading toward the east corridor. Restricted access area. And excused herself from a conversation and moved casually toward the ballroom exit. Security personnel fell in around her, invisible to other guests. She reached the corridor. Ahead, she saw Wells. He was typing on his phone, walking quickly. He turned a corner and disappeared. Anne followed. The corridor was empty now, quiet. Her heels clicked against marble. She rounded the corner and stopped. Wells stood with Marcus Thorne. Between them was a device Anne recognized from the photographs. The same type used to sabotage the car. They were speaking in low, urgent tones. Final transfer once it's done, Thorne was saying. 2 million, offshore, untraceable. And the evidence against me? Destroyed. Once I have confirmation. I don't think so. Both men spun. Wells's face went ashen. Thorne's hand moved toward his jacket, but officers emerged from alcoves, weapons drawn. Within seconds, both men were on the ground, hands behind their backs. Anne stood over them, her heart pounding, but her voice steady. Marcus Thorne. Commander Wells. You're both under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy, and treason. Wells looked up at her, desperation in his eyes. Your Highness, please? You don't understand, I understand perfectly, Anne said coldly. You betrayed everything you swore to protect. For money. For your own cowardice. Thorne said nothing. He just stared at the floor, defeated. Ashford moved forward. Take them away. Full interrogation. I want every detail. As officers led the two men away, Anne felt the tension drained from her body. It was over. Emma would have justice. Thomas's death wouldn't be meaningless, and the palace would be safe. She returned to the gala. Guests were none the wiser. The music played on. Anne accepted a glass of champagne and allowed herself a small smile. Catherine appeared beside her. It's really over? It's really over, Anne confirmed. The next morning, Anne visited Emma in the hospital. The girl was awake, stronger. Her mother sat beside her, holding her hand. When it entered, both women tried to stand, but gestured for them to remain seated. I came to tell you, Anne said softly, that we found the people responsible. They'll face justice. Your father's sacrifice wasn't in vain. Emma's mother began to cry. Emma squeezed Anne's hand. Thank you, she whispered. Anne stayed with them for an hour, talking, listening, grieving together. When she finally left, the sun was breaking through clouds outside. A new day. A fresh start. As Anne walked through the palace grounds, she thought about trust, about duty, about the price of truth. She'd lost her naivety, but she'd gained something else. Resolve. Strength. The knowledge that, even in the darkest moments, justice could prevail. And for the first time since that terrible morning, Anne allowed herself to breathe.